Welcome, everyone. We'll be getting started in just a moment. All right, let's get started. My name is Emily Badix, and I am the Associate Director at the Longmore Institute on Disability, and I am the co-director of Superfest Disability Film Festival. And we are now, with this panel, coming to the very end of our weekend, and we appreciate all the participants who are joining us for the bitter end. It's not going to be bitter. So we thought the best way to end this is to have a lot of our jurors on, and we're really excited to get to have on camera the folks who make the tough calls, very tough calls, about what films get to be seen each year. Just a quick audio description of myself. I am a white woman with curly hair, some gold dangly earrings, and I'm in my 30s. So just a few access notes. We are having the same problem with this. It's a total mystery. We're working with very experienced captioners who've done many programs with us, and we're using all the same setup. But for some reason, the Zoom captioning is not syncing with stream text today. So for captions, you will have to use this link to be able to access the program today, tinyurl.com/superfestcaptions. We are really sorry for this inconvenience, and we'll also make sure that a captioned video of this event is available afterwards. We also will be having, the point of this panel is really a dialogue as much as is possible in this webinar format. So please jump in the Q&A, share your thoughts about the films. What did you like? What did you not like? We can talk about it here, and the jurors will share their thoughts. So please jump in on the Q&A, or you can send an email to the email that you would have received information about, which is my email, and I'll be checking that as well. So with that, I will disappear and I will pass it over to Sara Acevedo, who has very generously agreed to moderate this panel, although I've asked her to serve as moderator and also as a participant because she is one of our jurors. And Sara will ask the other jurors to introduce themselves, audio describe, and share a little bit about their background. And again, don't hesitate to just post those Q&A questions in whenever they come up. Thank you all.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the last bit of Superfest for the year. I'm really happy to be here with everybody. My name is Sara Acevedo, and I am a Latin American woman of pale skin. I have short curly hair above my my jawline, and I'm wearing a sparkly, kind of fun black top, purple lips, and that's it. So I am going to invite our jurors today to introduce themselves and share a little bit about what brings them to Superfest. So I'm going to call on Katie. Katie Murphy.
Hey there. Hi. I'm Katie Murphy. A brief image description. I'm a white person, 30 years old, very pale, short red hair that I cut myself, and I'm wearing my union t-shirt for the CSU EU. And I'm a freelance audio describer. I also, once upon a time, was a grad student doing work in disability studies and was an assistant at the Longmore Institute. And my day job is I work at SF State, which, as you may have heard from Kathy Kudlook, has a commitment to social justice, which now includes laying off about 100 people during a pandemic. So that's what I've been doing, is trying to make that stop. I'm also wearing tinted glasses and the large headphones that are issued to every autistic child upon birth. Yeah, and I'm happy to see you all today.
Thank you so much, Katie. Alex?
Hey, Sara.
Hi.
Oh, Katie, I love that intro. My name's Alex Locust. I use he, him pronouns or anything said respectfully. My image description is that I am a biracial babe, giving you some glowing tan from some outdoor sun today. I've got a coral wall behind me. My hair is tied back in a bun. I've got a little gold bling, wishing I had more glitz like Asada's brought for us today. And it's been my pleasure to be a Superfest juror maybe 3 or 4 years now. I, at this point, feel like Superfest has always been a part of my life, or that's what I wish it was. So I work full time at the San Francisco AIDS Foundation doing diversity, equity, and inclusion work for all of our employees, prioritizing queer people, people of Black and brown people, people who use drugs. And in my free time, one could say I kind of don a glamputee persona. So I do disability justice organizing and just spread the word about the magic of disability everywhere I can.
Thank you. Love it so much. Love you so much. Matthew?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we see you, we hear you.
All right, my name is Matthew Alaniz. I am Latino, about 40 years old, male, medium Black hair, and I live in Austin, Texas as a freelance screenwriter and a script consultant. That's pretty much about it. I'll keep it short and sweet.
Thank you so much. And lastly, I'm going to say what I do. I am a disability studies professor at Miami University in Ohio. And I've been with Superfest for 4 years as well. And what I do in my free time, I have no free time. So basically I always work, and my advocacy is also, my activism is also in disability justice. So thank you everybody again. And I'm super happy to be here with my juror friends whom I love and I miss so much, and I wish I could see and hug, but I'm still happy that we have this opportunity to meet virtually. So the first question I have for everybody, including myself, but I'll go last, is serving on the jury. What are we as jurors looking for that makes something seem like a Superfest film? Anybody wants to take it?
I can go. I think
Okay.
this is Katie. I think Alice Wong really summed it up very well yesterday, which was joy, pleasure, and humor is, I think, one of the major trademarks of Superfest films. And when we say joy and pleasure and humor, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a comedy film or a happy film. It's a film that shows that there is some element of pleasure, of joy, and of humor in the lives of disabled people. So, for example, one year we had a film about a man coming to grips with the death of his father, which isn't, you know, a very fun topic for that person at that time, but it also showed the joy of his time with his father when they were alive, and they were, bonding over being close to the sea. So that was one of the things. Another thing is talking about community, or seeing a disabled person not in isolation, either from all of society or from other disabled people. So seeing them either within, the broader community or within a disability community. So those are kind of I would say are the marquee Superfest things, but I'm sure the other jurors have much more to say.
I really love your emphasis on joy. and really showing that joy and pleasure are just parts of everyday life and that we live everyday lives as well. Thank you, Katie. Alex or Matthew, whomever wants to take it on.
Hi, this is Matthew. I'll say when I first came to Superfest, I think what stood out to me the most is that we strive to kind of select films that are maybe outside the normal what we're used to seeing in disability in cinema and in the media in general. I think so often I'm used to seeing kind of these inspirational, motivational kind of films in the mainstream media, TV and cinema. And when I came to Superfest, I quickly saw how you guys kind of embrace all kind of angles of disability and the point of view of just different kinds of disabilities and different people's perspectives, and that there's just kind of real storytelling there. It's not the same old kind of thing that we're kind of conditioned to seeing, which I think can be toxic sometimes, most times, to be honest with you. So that's, I look forward to kind of pushing those films ahead and championing them so they get noticed.
Thank you so much. Alex?
I just can't agree more with, the joy that Katie was mentioning and Matthew speaking to kind of like new perspectives into disability. For me, as a Superfest juror, Superfest feels like a breath of fresh air. It feels like, when I think about how disability is often represented in mainstream media, I almost kind of feel like we're just drowning in like mediocre content, right? That's either, as Matthew said, really like inspiration porn or really myopic in what stories are told, who is telling those stories. And so Superfest feels like when I see the films that we end up selecting, it feels like my head is above water. I feel like I like finally get to get that air, that I need. And it just feels like a portal into the kind of world that I want to be living in, where we see media representation of disabled people that was created for and by disabled people. Of course, I think we could create a criteria list, right, of like, are there more than one disabled character? Are these intersectional, lenses that we're viewing these things? Is there joy? Is there pleasure, right? But I think there's just a certain magic that these films kind of just call to us. And when we're in that jury room, we are energized to like fight for them because we know that they represent what we want to see. And unfortunately, that's not how the rest of media typically feels for me.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes. And I have to say, we look for the edge, right? We always say we're not looking for Disability 101, which is like, it's kind of goes back to what everybody has said already, and another aspect that we really focus on is on how this edge manifests in different films from around the world. So that's for me one of the best elements of Superfest, is that I get to see disability representation in various different contexts and in global contexts. And so although Superfest has a home in the United States, the festival is really it's a prism of experiences, and I really do appreciate that, because I am not from this country. I wasn't born in this country, and I'm really always look forward to knowing how disability is being represented everywhere else. Okay, so second question. What films were your personal favorites this year, and why? Maybe we can keep up the same order.
Yeah, sure. This is Katie again. My personal favorite was, as I mentioned, I'm autistic, and one of my, waiting on interpreter. All right, one of my special interests, and even my little nephew knows this, is snails, just the common snails that you see around in California and other places. So the sound of a wild snail eating was my favorite film, and it got to the point where I do audio description live for the judging And so I was doing the audio description of that film, and everybody else in the chat was talking about the snail, and I could not participate in the conversation about the snail. And it was one of the hardest things in my life, one of, the most difficult crosses to bear. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed that film. And knowing now that Daryl Hannah, who is an autistic person, did the narration of the film, just kind of brings it to a completely other level, and really made me realize why so much of it resonated with me beyond the special interest angle.
Absolutely. Thank you, Katie. And I thoroughly enjoyed, as an autistic person too, I enjoyed watching you thoroughly enjoy the snail. Matthew?
Hi, this is Matthew. I think just off the top of my head, one of the ones that kind of stood out to me was High Flying Jade. I really enjoyed that film. I thought that was a kind of personal look and documentary look into this woman's life, and the juxtaposition of her personal story versus the end of her act, and kind of waiting to see her act. And I don't know, just that story kind of just really felt complete and whole to me. And I really enjoyed watching that one. And Migrito too. I like Migrito a lot. That one made me laugh. It was very cute, and it kind of resonated with my Latino background. So that was real fun to watch and see. Really appreciate that one.
Thank you, Matthew.
Mm-hmm.
Alex?
Ugh, don't make me pick Sara.
I know, right?
Yeah, I will fully own my glamputee bias and say that Single was probably my favorite. I think in the realm of a lot of these, I think there's kind of this like flavor of media. Like I feel like there's like Insecure, there's Shrill, even like Special. I feel like there are these kind of like millennial, like people who are a little bit gruff, kind of like going through it, imperfect kind of characters. And it's really nice to see disabled people allowed to be portrayed as like messy and imperfect. And I think what the film did to add nuance and depth to that so quickly was demonstrate why someone might be gruff, like that first microaggression, just as it opens, well, she's at the convenience store, the grocery store. I feel like oftentimes the gruffness is like just like a character flaw, or we're shown that person is just like really like bristly and hard to deal with. And I feel like it's such a subtle communication of like the social model of disability without having to use words. So to have that, and then now this like really, I found to be like tense in a good way, date where now we're seeing more imperfection and more like foil of, we don't see disabled people go on dates in media very often, and for that character have to like face internalized ableism through the mirror of another disabled person. It felt like that nice like banter and like dance that I like to see, that I feel like it didn't have like a neat ending, which it was really refreshing to see that happen.
Thank you so much. I appreciate. I remember feeling slightly a slight distaste for it, and then I started listening to what everybody had to say about it, and of course that made me think twice, which is what we do in that room, which is the I think the most important part, at least for me, is that I always get to think twice after, or 3 times or 4 times, right, throughout the weekend that we're together for so many hours. So I appreciated just taking a different perspective, and now hearing you again talk about it, it just brings so much more to it as well. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Sara, I wanted to add that one of, just a shout out for a filmmaker, one of the films you had a distaste for was High Flying Jade, with this scene that was very flashy and overwhelming and a really bad access thing. And the filmmaker, Catherine Sweetman, just immediately said, yep, let me get rid of that scene. And it was just, it was removed, and it was so wonderful to have that. So I just saw a chance to get that shout out.
Thank you. That's awesome. I did not know that. That's amazing. Yeah, it was tough on my senses for sure. So for me, I have to agree with Matthew. I really love My Grito. My Grito was amazing. Just in the sense that it portrays, again, this joy of life, and like, I want my grito, right? And I'm gonna interview people to get them to scream the mariachi scream, so that I can pick. And I found so much joy and pleasure in that short film, that that has to be one of my favorites, and the God-given talent for sure. It just, it has, I left the Bay Area, and that's been really tough on me. So it really caught me in a very emotional moment of like missing the flavors of the Bay, and the artistry, and just, I really love the way that the film tells the story, and just how it shows this prism of experiences, and parts of the Bay that are just like come together like a mosaic kind of thing. So I really enjoyed it. And then the alternative ways of being human, I just found it so fun. I just found it like, I don't know, just joy, just like joy for joy. And so I have to echo what my fellow jurors have said about this aspects of disability that we rarely see, of course, in mainstream media. So yeah, those are my favorites. Let's see. Okay, number 3. What do you think is the hardest part about being on the jury? And really, this is our chance to share a bit more about how messy the jury process can sometimes be. And so can you all share any examples of some of the tensions or challenges that come up and how we work through them as a group?
Sure. So one of the things, and this happens really anytime you're working closely with a group of people and there's difference existing within the group. Everybody within the juror panel is a person with a disability, but we all have other identities and other positionalities that we're coming from. And I think, and I see this, in my union work, I see this in my self-advocacy work, there can be times where those moments of privilege show up for everyone, especially when you're working so closely over the course of, say, like an entire weekend. So for me, it's really navigating and checking myself and checking some of my levels of frustration and really committing to do the work of being a jury panel and not just a single juror who's listening to themselves talk. Because I think, as you mentioned, Sara, one of the biggest parts of being on the jury is having your opinion on something be changed by listening to someone else. So for me, that's one of the hard parts, but it's also probably one of the most rewarding, is learning to work as a group every single time you come back every year.
That's why we keep coming back. Matthew?
Hi, this is Matthew. Yeah, just kind of piggyback on what Katie was saying. I agree with everything she was saying. And I also think it's almost like you have to be like a lawyer sometimes in there. You have to, you get your favorite things and you find yourself trying to defend them at the end of it and saying why you liked it so much, and trying to debate someone else or get them on your side, or maybe change someone else's mind about why maybe a certain movie doesn't deserve to be in the jury. And that, when you have your personal favorites of things, obviously things get kind of personal. And so you find yourself trying to defend things. And sometimes the tensions get a little thick in the room, but it's always fun to try and convince other people your point of view, and we're all trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to show the best movies for the audience and everything. So I think the fact that we all have a common goal and everything kind of makes everything a little bit easier. But yeah, I'll say you have to lawyer up a little bit sometimes when you come in that room.
That's so true. That's so true. Hearing you just reminds me of like just being there and being our own attorneys for our favorite films. Alex?
I love that lawyer up. I I feel like I can like feel those times when I was definitely,
Yeah.
getting my arguments ready. But, I think that leads into me.
I
Alex,
can't,
oh, go ahead, Sarah.
we just lost you for a little bit, your audio, Alex. No.
Am I back?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I saw you pause. Just saying, I think the discourse of Superfest and the jurors always, I feel like I leave with a more expansive consciousness around disability. And, I think I credit you anytime I can, Sada, like your commitment to that global perspective, the way that you invite the jury to be more accountable around the nuances of what international conversation around disability brings in. And I think particularly the challenging or the more messy pieces like, the awards assignment. And I think, the Disability Justice Award always poses probably one of the hardest, lawyering up. But you show up for disability justice in such a beautiful way. And, for people who are tuning in who aren't as familiar with disability justice as a framework, I think, Sara, you really hold us all, you open that invitation, right, to remember, the people who brought it into consciousness, the framework that represents, the principles that we have to be in alignment if we're going to offer that award. And sometimes it's not easy because it'll be like, ooh, like 90% there. And we're like, let's just do it. And you're like, that's not disability justice, so.
You make me like teary-eyed because it's such a huge part of my identity. I feel like coming into my activism with disability justice really has transformed the way that I see disability. And I feel so represented, and I wasn't born here, I didn't grow up here, and I feel like it's like one of the homes that I've found for myself in the US is disability justice activism, and of course the practice and the framework. And yeah, it can get really but I just love the way that we are so kind to one another, even when we are trying to quote push an agenda. That's I think what makes it work for us as a group of jurors that get together so we've been together for a while now, and I feel like we all respect each other's perspectives so much that we want to learn from each other in a way that it's not like, I'm going to push my agenda and I don't care about what this person thinks about this certain film or their own perspective in terms of how it impacts their own personal life. Like in this case, for me, disability justice. And I'm like, yeah, it's not 90%. Yeah, no, we're not there yet. We can get there. We're not there yet. And I just, so that's one of the tensions that actually is another source of pleasure for me. So I have to agree with Katie that it makes it so worth it and so fulfilling, ever since I left the Bay, having to travel back to the Bay from the other side of the country is really tough on my disabled body mind. But it's just as soon as I'm there, I know how worth it is to be there with everybody. So yeah, the tensions are just juicy and respectful and wonderful, and they generate a lot of further conversation just outside of the juror room.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go for our fourth question, which is, what do each of you think that audience members should know about this year's lineup? Are there any films that you think the audience should hear a bit more about, why they were selected?
I'm going to go back to the snail film because I'm perseverating on that. And in addition to everybody on the panel being really loving animals, anytime an animal shows up in a film, during screening. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like a very big celebrity has just suddenly appeared in the room. We've never met that animal before, but we love them. It was also, in terms of why it was so remarkable to us, was how did they get a snail to act? How did they make that happen? So that was one of the big things for us, and I think that won the Innovation and Craft Award because of the snacting or snail acting that was going on. Just because we hadn't seen that melding of what you would call maybe the Richard Attenborough, nature documentary type style with a narrative film. Like with a nature documentary, obviously it's a documentary, there's going to be some storylines, the lion eating the wildebeest or whatever. But with this film, you had to make what the animal's behavior was doing fit the actual story. And that's something that is very interesting to do with a snail, which is, not a vertebrate, not, it's not a dolphin, it's not a poodle, it's a very kind animal, but it's not known for being trainable.
Right. Very Kafkaesque. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's.
I want to give a shout out to Karen Nakamura, who couldn't be with us today, and her love of just like the celebrity animal, that like non-human animal that appears on screen. And it's suddenly this happy moment for all of us who are animal lovers. So yeah, I just wanted to follow up with that. Thank you, Katie. Matthew?
Yeah, hi. When I was listening to Alex talks earlier about his favorite film and he brought up Single, I was just thinking to myself, that's something that I could definitely see on streaming platforms somewhere like Netflix or Hulu. And I just wish I could see something like that, of that caliber, of that quality, be on one of those kind of streaming services. So I think, just kind of watch out for those kind of movies that just kind of rise above the rest in terms of like execution and storytelling. And yeah, now when Alex said that was one of his favorites, that kind of brought that to surface. So sorry, Alex, if I stole your answer, but I'm taking it.
Alex?
I gotta get ready to lawyer up in a bunch of different ways, huh? I was looking at the list, and man, I'm gonna struggle to pronounce this, but the Indimenticabile.
Indimenticable.
Thank you. Disability and sexuality, I could talk about forever. Invite me over, let's have drinks. Like I really love talking about the intersection of these themes, and I feel like in the scope of Superfest being a remedy to the kind of like tropes and tired narratives that we see, to see a disabled woman pursuing her sexual needs and her desires, and like I feel like the film held a really important tension between like showing tenderness and intimacy for her and centering her experience, while also demonstrating the like social barriers for her getting her needs met. And I think one of the things that we as a jury really, I'm grateful for the body mind pool that we share, because some of the reactions of the sex worker in the film, like I think there was deeper knowledge that we got to explore of how his interactions with her, the way she showed up in her body and her sexuality and her comfort and just her like awareness of what she wanted, right? And the way that she wanted to pursue sex clearly changed him, and I think in a way that typically isn't shown in film. So I just think in the scope of what Superfest is looking to do, there's the thematic elements, right, that Matthew and Katie are talking about. There's also the practical elements of showing what, when you have sex with someone with CP, maybe there is a bit of awkwardness or clumsiness. Maybe there is, some of these like granular things that we don't see when people are acting disabled or cripping up, or it like gets overemphasized and we miss the joy and the giggles and the laughs that really add that like tenderness to those moments, you know.
Oh, I love that answer so much. The practicality of like the adaptability of disability, which I call it, you know. I talk to my students about that, and I talk about how we are find joy in adaptation. And so that sort of like dissonance that caused between her attitude and her desire to adapt to fulfill her sexual and sensual needs really kind of threw him off. And it was then like some sort of reconciliation of sorts, like not between the two of them personally, but more so the perspectives and sort of like the affect that they were both bringing into the scene. Absolutely, you know, and to talk about practicality, I really recommend verisimilitude in terms of what it is to see somebody else act you, perform you, and find all the little flaws. And you find yourself thinking, of course not. No, that's not the way that you would get up there. No, that's not the way that you would respond to that. No, that's not. And it's portrayed in such a wonderful way through the character's eyes the entire time. I don't know, I just really love that about it. And it also made me upset. And I think that because I've seen that happen way too many times, and there's never the other side to kind of respond to that simultaneously, right? It's either us on the other side of the screen feeling upset or angry or cursing, but it's never there simultaneously to sort of call attention to what that does. So that's my recommendation for everybody. Let's see. Do we have a last one? Okay, yeah. So we have one closing question. Sorry, I have my notes here. All of us jurors donated our time to participate in Superfest. I like to close by hearing from each of you. Why do you personally choose to invest your time in disability film as a means to social change? What change is possible through a disability film festival, you think?
For me, I think about it a lot from my position and from the people that I know. I am very much situated in the Bay Area, in sort of this conflagration of disability communities, sometimes a literal conflagration because we're climate change. It's often very smoky and perilous over here. Where you have, you know, disability justice activism, disability cultural work, you have disability studies being done, you know, in academia at Berkeley, at SFSU. And you sort of have all these positions coming together, all these historical forces coming together. And I think Superfest is a way for all of those people, not only to come together and to be in conversation with one another, but also to recuperate in a way. And it's a way for us in some ways to celebrate this community, to welcome people into the community, and also to mourn what we've lost. I'm thinking specifically of Stacy Milburn. This is one of those times where so many people who knew her kind of came together and realized, wow, this is someone we are grieving and someone who we're continuing to do work on in her name, and using the lessons learned from her. So I think to be very inside baseball about it, it's for this community, it's a moment to refresh and reflect and energize.
Yes, I can totally. Oh my God, I couldn't agree more. It's a space where you come and you don't have to fight to be who you are. You don't have to explain who you are, what you feel in your body. It's just a place where you can just be. And enjoy yourself watching the films and seeing representation, seeing yourself represented, your friends represented, your community represented. And that's one of the things that I miss so dearly about the bag, gonna make me cry, the disability community and its many facets. Yes, I get choked up because I really do miss it so very much. Yeah. Thanks, Katie. Matthew?
Yeah, so when I first came to Superfest, when I was first introduced to it, I came as an attendee, just someone who was there to watch the movies. And like I said in my intro, I live in Austin, Texas right now. So when I did my research and found Superfest, I decided to go and see what you guys were about. And just as soon as I got there, just the kind of level of attention you guys pay to what you show, and just the people. The other attendees, the people who work there, the Superfest people, all you guys just are great. And then, to be a part of the jury, is a whole, to see the care and consideration. Like we talked about some of the challenges of being in the jury, but that just showed me the amount of care that you guys took to kind of show these movies. I've been a juror of other film festivals, and I've been a reader for screenplays in certain festivals, and I've never really seen the amount of attention that you guys give, and the amount of love and care you guys you put forth to kind of choose these movies. And yeah, like we said before, it's hard, and sometimes the attention gets thick, and there's arguments and debates, but that to me just showed me that you cared, and that's why I keep choosing to be a part of this festival and be here with you guys.
You've been such a welcome addition to the jury, Matt.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been so awesome to share, and I really love the fact that you always mention how you weren't always in, or that you came into disability activism or this perspective of disability later in life. And
exactly, yeah.
To bring though from those experiences, I really love that.
Oh, thank you, Sara. I appreciate that.
Alex?
Man, what a question.
Right.
I just recently watched the Netflix documentary Disclosure about transportation in media, and I was just like, this is like what it just felt so resonant with Superfest, in that I think all of those beautiful trans people speaking in that documentary spoke to the violence and like trauma of not seeing ourselves represented. Let me just pause because I think we lost Sara, so I want to make sure.
No, I'm here. I was just blowing my nose because I was a little crying.
Oh. Yes, we love access. Okay, so and the trans folks just speaking to like what erasure can do, what can happen when they see really toxic, traumatic portrayals of themselves over and over and over and over again. I joke about Superfest being a juror, right? Like I'm like, what a Venn diagram for me, right? Two of my favorite things, like judging things and disability in media, But I feel like this is it. For as much as I would love I'd love to know that Superfest is like this beacon for mainstream media to find the gems that exist and stop saying disabled actors aren't out there, disabled screenwriters, disabled creatives don't exist. But I think Superfest's true power is in what it does for disabled people. And so, the social change that I see is that collective moment where annually we get to come together and celebrate in community. We get to learn more about access for each other, right? That cross-movement solidarity or cross-disability solidarity and collective access. And when we offer, when we select these films, we're saying to potential audience members, like, we see you, we want you to feel seen, we want you to feel, challenged and understand that like both your experience is unique and common at the same time. And so I think that's the social power that really draws me back every year.
Yeah, I really have to agree with that. And you know what I think often is how humbling it is to witness competing access needs and having to step down from your horse and be like, okay, this is a space where I don't have to advocate for myself as a disabled person in a space that doesn't recognize me as such or as anything, to moving into recognizing each other's access needs and how they often conflict, and how to negotiate that with care. And I see that we lay down our arms, so to speak, when we are together and are experiencing competing access needs within our community. Whereas if my access needs are being violated outside the community, then that's a different story, right? That's when I use my grito, because it's a different feel, is a different perspective. And I find it humbling because I can really step away from myself and be like, you're not the only one in this room, and your access needs are not the only only ones in the room. So I definitely have to agree with that. Just the power of being together and how that makes me think twice, about everything. But how thinking about these dilemmas or these conflicts that come up just make me a better scholar, a better activist, and a better community member. So I have to say that I come to Superfest every year because I love being with all of you. I mean, that's actually like, I really do love being in that room. And I just feel held, I feel seen, I feel understood, and it is a space for me to really decompress. It is super busy work, it's hard work. It's a long weekend for me because I have to travel all the way from across, but it doesn't matter to me because I never feel at ease when I'm out in the non-disabled world. So even if I'm tired physically, I can come to that space and be tired physically, but be at ease emotionally, mentally, psychologically. So I have to say that's it. I feel like it's a family. Like, and not to be cliche, but for me, it's like it's a family. Superfest, Jurors, and of course, like the exhilaration of the award ceremony and all that stuff, and seeing all the people coming in. I don't know. I just it's always been super exhilarating for me. So this was definitely a change, but I'm still grateful that we can be together this way. Again, I said it again. So I think that's it from us. Thank you so much for joining us and for your, it's not from the
We have,
panel.
yes,
From
we
the
have,
panel.
well, we have some audience questions for you. We have
Oh,
about
yes, we do.
13 more minutes, so would love to get a few
Yeah,
more,
no questions from
bits.
us.
So
but
good. 13 more
from you
minutes
to
of you.
us. Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So one of your fellow jurors, Reagan, is with us. Hi, Reagan, and thanks.
Oh, yay. Hi, Reagan.
And pointed out, she said, wanted to say as a spoonie and someone who has had to spend a lot of time in bed resting, that the film of The Wild Snail captured a sense of crypt time that I often don't see in the film. And especially with the experience we had with the phase 1 jurors, actually, were kind of concerned about the pace being slow. And then we had a conversation with them about crypt time, and then it really shifted how they saw the film. I was wondering if somebody would like to share about what crypt time is, and it's specifically in regards to that film.
So as the snail person, or snurson, so crypt time is it's a conceptualization or way of thinking about time that was really kind of formalized by Alison Kafer in her book Feminist Queer Crypt. Alison Kafer is a disability studies scholar, and it's talking about the ways that time moves differently for disabled people, and we interact with time very differently. And that's true even you know, amongst ourselves. So for example, we can be watching some of the really slow paced films and my brain is like working way too fast. And I'm like, I need to get out of here. We need to stop this right now. I need to go run in the woods somewhere. And that's my experience of time, which is being very, very fast. And apparently if you don't have a snail in the film, it's a slower paced film, that's where I struggle. But particularly with that film, we're looking at the ways that the protagonist, the human protagonist, was talking throughout about how, you know, time seemed to really slow down because she's just lying in bed and she doesn't have the energy to read to begin with, to watch films. And it's through watching the snail, who also, you know, literally moves at a snail's pace, that she's able to make it through this time. And it's through the community with this non-human animal that she's sort of able to sync up her time and experience it in a much more interesting way. I think she mentions, you know, time seemed to fly by. So that's that was one of the things that we pinpointed during judging, was the exploration of crypt time and how we can sort of find ourselves represented amongst non-human animals, and how that can be a very powerful and potent explanation of our embodiments, our experiences of time, and you know, just how we are moving within the world or not moving within the world. So I'd be happy to hear what anyone else has to say about crypt time.
This is Sara. I love that, what you just said, Katie. This whole idea of embodying this slower, non-linear pace is really a fight against capitalism. And, you know, we embody that during the juror weekend. We are really honoring crypt time. It's always, you know, I always feel, at least I'm going to speak for myself, in spaces that I have to behave in a certain way, that I have to sit in a certain way, that I have to not move in a certain way, you know. And being an autistic person, that's difficult. But when I'm there, and, you know, and I come out more lately as more, I'm not going to hide my embodiment, I'm just going to play it on and perform it even. But when I'm at Superfest during the weekend and I'm exhausted, I can lay down on a mat with Karen Nakamura and just I don't know, just still be there, but at a slower pace and with each other. So there's no judgment. There's absolutely room for leaving, coming back, taking a break, you know, things that you don't get to do anywhere else.
All right, Alex, come on back, because this is a question for you right here. So Seeley, that's Seeley, asked more info on the millennial crypt ? Representation of Insecure, Shrill, and others.
Yes. I maybe just to kind of clarify, I think I was highlighting certain shows or media that's come out recently that features people like late 20s, early 30s, like trying to figure it out, you know, kind of dealing with like job struggles and dating struggles and all of those kind of things. But I think shows like Insecure, you know, featuring a Black woman as a protagonist, Shrill having a fat woman as a protagonist, you know, Special being a gay disabled man. I think they all also feature how society, like systems of oppression, microaggressions, all these things can make it more difficult to navigate kind of this like certain like time period of our lives. And I felt like Single really, I think Shrill comes to mind for me, where that character, my experience of that character was because of how much fat phobia she experienced on a regular basis. She had a lower sense of her own self-worth, which made it more difficult to navigate experiences in life where she needed that reservoir of you know, radical self-love. And so it made sense when she did things that didn't suit her best, because we could see how those decisions were informed by like fat phobic like social circumstances. And I would love to see more portrayals of disability where it's not that the disabled character is like tough to deal with, or they're you know, like just mean or sardonic or sarcastic because that's just who they are. It's like, it's really fucking exhausting to navigate microaggressions on a daily basis. It's really taxing to navigate inaccessible environments or an erasure of the disability experience. So seeing something like Single so quickly show that that main character's attitude is informed by her circumstances and not just because she's like upset that she's an amputee. I think that really, really stuck out to me.
Thank you so much, Alex. That's perfect. And believe me, folks, follow Alex on social media and all that stuff if you want lots more like great pop culture recommendations and in conversations like this, because I certainly get most of my favorite shows from hot tips from Alex. Let's see. There was another question, and I'm not sure if our jurors can answer this because we typically do some behind the scenes sneaking around on the filmmakers before we select a film as part of this process, but I'm not sure that we got anything with this one. But they asked if anybody knows anything of the making of or public responses to the Italian short film Unforgettable. That's the English translation of Indimenticabili. But if not, I also know that that's a film that like had a really rich conversation in the jury room. And I'm wondering if you guys might share a little bit of that. And just a time check, we have 4 minutes left.
So with that film, and I want to pause to do a quick image description because you'll see my profile pic every time I go away. It says no layoffs. So for the sake of equal access, everybody should know I'm against layoffs, both at SF State and in general. But with that film, that was one of those films where we brought a variety of perspectives to it and we really had to talk it through. There's a moment in the film where the male lead character has picked up a John in a bar and sort of pushes him away and then runs to the female lead character. And that was a moment where we really had to trouble through, was this a heteronormative moment? Was he returning to the disabled woman because it allowed a form of sort of heteronormative domesticity with disability added, or was it something else? And I think that was really where Sara was very instrumental, just knowing Spanish and being able to translate like the Italian of what was going on and being able to bring to all of our consciousness the way that his male client was being very kind of rough with him. And that was something, unfortunately, that wasn't expressed as much in the audio description, which I would have liked if they were able to say a bit more about how, there was a certain level of roughness and lack of care with the male lead character.
Anybody else want to chime in on that one?
This is Sara. I think Katie said it beautifully.
Agreed. Well, maybe you all can come on and just end with 1 or 2 words. We have 2 minutes left, so this will be a lightning round of just what do you want to see submitted to Superfest next year, so that, if you're on the jury, you are having even harder decisions to make.
This is Sara. I would like to see some creep apocalyptic stuff, climate change, stuff that really affects disabled people first, of course, disabled people of color first. So I would really love to see something like that, like a Max Fury kind of style kind of thing. I don't know. I'm just like craving some of that because it is everywhere, and yet it is nowhere. So I would really like to see my community take that on.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on what Sara is saying, I think just anything, I mean, it's gonna sound really, really kind of superficial, but it's not just like a coolness, like something that's just kind of, that just seems, you know, that the narrative doesn't focus on disability, and that would, like, you know, something sci-fi or something like with a thriller, something that just seems that's just kind of within the box of mainstream, but doesn't seem to be playing a lot in the disability community in terms of movies and things like that. Just something with a kind of a spicier narrative, I guess, actiony narrative, exciting narratives.
I'm gonna actually steal something that was from the Q&A. Hope had mentioned, can you incorporate asexuality and aromanticism perhaps? And that's been done in previous films years prior, but I think we need to have conversations within Superfest, because this is a place for complex conversations where we're talking about queerness in a way that does not prescribe you know, not being asexual, basically being in either a sexual or romantic relationship. So I think that's one of those complex conversations about, like, what is the nature of queerness and how does that relate to disability? And how can we do that in a way that's not furthering the extreme levels of aphobia within our community and within society as a whole? So how do we have, you know, keep the Superfest Bay Area aesthetic of, like, yeah, we're queer, we're here, we're queer, while also not really pushing other people down and, you know, really making it about the whole community.
I'll give a shout out to Lovecraft Country as the season finale tonight. I'm so excited. And I just feel like they have done such an amazing job of exploring the horrors of white supremacy using like traditional like monsters and magic and sci-fi, and so I would love to see like some real badass exploration of like the horrors of ableism, you know, and how like disabled people are like thriving and magical and all of the things, and like ableism gets in the way, you know, or tries to at least. I would love to see some like action adventure, you know, sci-fi fantasy, disabled people like triumphing over ableist shenanigans. That would make my heart sing for sure.
Creep-apocalyptic.
Yeah,
I can't pronounce it. Creep-apocalyptic. Gosh, I would love to see that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a perfect place for us to end, is, you know, wrapping up the festival by thinking about next year, because our Superfest team is going to take a couple of days to figure out some mysteries that we face this weekend, and we're going to sleep a lot. And then we're going to start planning next year's festival. And by all means, if you hear any leads on some of these types of films, this is what we're looking for. So send them our way. We don't just wait for films to get submitted to us. We also try to recruit so that we get some of those most edgy films that we're hoping for. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this panel today. And thank you to all of our participants who participated this weekend. We just are so grateful to have gotten to spend the weekend with you all. Thank you.